the studios of ITN The News with Nicholas Owen.
Good evening, welcome to the programme. The headlines. Summit warning, China must guarantee Hong Kong's democracy. Prison Authorities Act over stalkers who pester women from behind bars. And the new leadership job Kenneth Clarke has been offered. Leaders of the world's main industrialised nations are about to warn China officially that it must maintain democracy in Hong Kong after the colony's handed over in 8 days' time. Tony Blair, one of 7 leaders at the summit at Denver in Colorado, said Britain has a deep moral responsibility to the people of Hong Kong. From the summit, James Mates reports.
These summits are meant to be getting to know you sessions, a chance for world leaders to relax together. There's all too little of that now, but it was a determinedly relaxed Tony Blair who came to dinner last night in jeans and a check shirt. He and wife Cherie are clearly becoming firm friends with their hosts, the Clintons. As the Prime Minister left church this morning, it was in the knowledge that one of his key objectives, winning support for the people of Hong Kong, had been achieved. The final communique contains strong language about the need for democratic elections there and the importance of Hong Kong's freedoms and the rule of law. He used an American television interview to reiterate that the handover will not mark the end of Britain's interest there.
My sister-in-law is Hong Kong Chinese. I have family in Hong Kong. There are 3.5 million British overseas passport holders in Hong Kong. I know Hong Kong well. We have a deep moral responsibility to Hong Kong that we will discharge. But the best way to discharge it is to keep China to the joint declaration and make sure we do build international support to do that.
The leaders are also preparing tough language on the need for Bosnia's leaders to do more to implement the Dayton peace accords. There is still, though, no agreement with the Americans on what to do when NATO's peacekeeping mandate expires next year. In a few hours' time, the Prime Minister flies on to New York, where his attention turns to the environment. 5 years after the Rio Earth Summit, he will tell the United Nations that, unlike Britain, many countries have not lived up to the promises they made there. James Mates, ITN, Denver, Colorado.
A confrontation which had been feared between loyalists and nationalists in Northern Ireland has been averted. Police banned the planned Orange Order march through the nationalist village of Balachi in County Londonderry and a counter-demonstration by locals there. Ivan Little reports.
Scores of police had been drafted into Balachi amid fears that there could be clashes after the RUC banned Orange men marching through the mainly nationalist village. Around 200 Orange men paraded up to police lines and handed over a letter of protest for the Secretary of State Mo Mowlam, demanding the right to march wherever they wanted. There was no standoff, however. The Orange men turned around and marched back to a church service. Just 200 yards away, at the other end of the street, the RUC also stopped a protest march by nationalist residents, angry that the Orange men had been allowed into Balachi at all. In County Tyrone, another Orange march was halted as nationalists staged a sit-down protest in the village of Mountfield near Omagh. RUC chiefs have said they're pleased there was no violence after today's reroutings, but they fear things won't be so peaceful at other marches in the coming weeks, especially at the contentious Drumcree parade, now exactly a fortnight away. Ivan Little, ITN, Balachi.
The prison service has promised to act after a warning today that some men in jail for stalking women continue to terrorise them from behind bars. Probation officers say they use threatening letters and phone calls and pass on victims' details to fellow inmates. Adrian Britton reports.
Securely behind bars, but just as free to commit their crime. It is estimated convicted stalkers and sex offenders continue to menace over 100 women in Britain with phone calls and letters. Some even hoodwink lawyers into passing on hate mail. For the victims, the abuse is relentless.
I think every victim of stalking has a right to believe that when that stalker is sent to prison that they are safe, but in reality we know that that's not true. I think the prison authorities have got to do a lot more to make sure that these people cannot keep in touch with the victims.
The prison service says it will withdraw the telephone privileges of any inmate who harasses their victim from inside jail, but often that punishment has little effect.
When that was stopped and the authorities did intervene in a number of cases, they then got other offenders convicted of similar offences to stalk their victim. And we've even had instances now of people being released to prison and stalking somebody else's victim.
New laws have made it easier to jail stalkers, yet according to victim help groups, some women continue to suffer because they feel powerless to complain.
It's up to the victim to turn around and say, no, I will not accept this. I will inform the police, I will inform the prison authorities, I will inform the probationary service that this is happening again.
The problem is so acute that Home Office ministers are expected to meet police and pressure groups next month to see how jail stalking can be curbed. Some believe prisoners who stalk should have their sentences automatically increased. Adrian Britton, ITN, at the Home Office.
5 men will appear in court tomorrow charged with kidnapping and torturing a man allegedly lured to a flat and held there for 2 days. Police swooped on the flat in West London yesterday, seizing a truncheon, a stun gun and a vacuum cleaner adapted to deliver electric shocks. The Ministry of Defence says it's gravely concerned about a string of sexual harassment complaints by women recruits at its elite training base at Purbright in Surrey. 14 have made allegations ranging from harassment to rape. And the Civil Aviation Authority has launched an investigation into claims that passengers on a flight of the Dutch airline KLM were exposed to excessive radiation from a cargo of medical equipment. It's alleged to have happened on a flight to Heathrow in May. The new Conservative Party leader William Hague is preparing to announce the junior members of his shadow cabinet. Today, a pro-European Tory MP said he's disappointed with Mr Hague's new shadow cabinet. Sir Ray Whitney believes that key appointments favour the party's Eurosceptic wing. Our political correspondent Hugh Pym reports.
Pro-European Tory MPs are this weekend mulling over the consequences of William Hague's elevation to the party leadership, and they're not happy with the complexion of the new shadow cabinet, which has a distinctly Eurosceptic look to it.
If you take someone like myself, who thought Ken Clarke ought to be the leader, and certainly wanted him to be, obviously we are disappointed, but much more floating around than disappointment is this deep consciousness of the need for unity.
The new Conservative chairman, Lord Parkinson, said the shadow cabinet was broadly based, and he dismissed rumours that the pro-Europeans might quit the party.
William has very cleverly merged all the competing interests, brought them into his shadow cabinet, and he doesn't want to lose any Conservatives, and I don't believe we will.
The Tory Positive Europeans, as they're known, will watch closely to see which MPs Mr Hague chooses to be junior frontbench spokesman and whether they reinforce the Eurosceptic presence in his team. Hugh Pym, ITN, Westminster.
Rugby and the British Lions have spent the day in training after their heroic victory over South Africa's Springboks yesterday. It's put them in high spirits for their next match against the world champions on Saturday. Our South Africa correspondent Steve Scott reports from Cape Town.
No time for relaxation, no time yet for reflection on a stunning win. The Lions squad putting themselves through a punishing training session. Those involved in yesterday's triumph opting to help the midweek team's preparations.
It's quite a special group of players, I think, the whole 35. I mean, the